Sometimes I like to rewatch movies or television shows that I watched as a kid that I had not watched in a long time, and being an adult, I noticed things that I had not noticed before. So I just thought I might mention a few of them, and it would be too easy, too cheap to mention, adult jokes that they slipped into kids' movies and whatnot. So I'll just forget about those and go a little bit deeper to something more substantial. For example, I watched the original two Ghostbusters movies when I was much younger, but it wasn't until I rewatched them as an adult that I realized what an obnoxious man-child Peter Venkman was. Of course, I understand that was the character that Bill Murray was playing, and of course, yes, he does prove he is a genuinely nice, sympathetic, caring person and all, but it would take time to see that. I'm not sure if most people would be willing to spend the time necessary to get to know him. So that means obviously that Ray and Egon must really be quite tolerant and patient to be able to put up with someone like him. Something else perhaps in Hocus Pocus, there is much fuss made about the fact that Max is a virgin, despite the fact he's only like 15 or 16, at the time. But there are several parts about that of course would have gone over my head as a kid that I thought about later as an adult. Well, first of all, when he sees the black flame candle in the Sanderson sisters' house, he mentions that it will raise the dead when lit by a virgin, and he asks Allison, "So, you want to light the sucker and meet the old broads?" Allison very coyly says, "No, thank you." And some people are interpreting it as to say that Allison was in fact not a virgin, and this idea is given more support, more credibility later in the movie when Allison takes out a jar of salt and says, "Guaranteed to keep away witches, zombies, and old boyfriends." Well, then of course, again, as a kid I wouldn't have thought of this, but as an adult I do have to wonder, how is it that Max's 8-year-old sister Danny even understands the concept of virginity in the first place, and how exactly does she know so much about her older brother's sex life or lack thereof? I can't speak for everyone, but most people I know aren't in the habit of discussing their sex lives with anyone, really. And then finally, going to another example of something I never thought about as a kid, but then thought about as an adult. In both Angels in the Outfield and The Absent-Minded Professor, sports games play a huge role in the plot. But in both those movies, the sports team for whom the protagonists are rooting is not doing so well. So the protagonists give them a little bit of assistance. Now, of course, we are meant to think that this is a good thing, but as an adult, though, I realized that the protagonists were essentially cheating. It's sad that their teams were losing, but they were losing fairly. They simply were not as skilled as the other teams, so giving them that external assistance was most certainly playing against the rules. So what does everyone else think? Have you ever rewatched something that you watched as a kid and then noticed certain details that you never saw before? Please let me know what you think.